In the opening scene, a car is shown. A girl named Susan, who studied in Milan City, is coming to her hometown for Christmas. From the railway station, she takes a taxi to her house. Susan's father seems to be a wealthy man as the main gate of the house is massive, and the pathway from the gate to the house is lined with many trees. When the taxi enters, the sound of a dog barking can be heard. Susan gets out of the taxi and climbs the steps. Hearing the barking, a lady named Maria opens the door and steps outside. Susan looks at Maria in surprise, and Maria asks, "Are you Susan?" Susan says yes. Maria has recently started working in this house, which is why Susan doesn't know about her. When Susan enters the house, she sees her grandmother, whom we'll call Grandma. Grandma cannot walk and is always in a wheelchair. After a short while, another lady enters the house. This lady is Susan's mother. Let's call her Mother. Susan had told her mother she would arrive in the afternoon but came earlier. When Susan arrived in the taxi, her mother smelled smoke on her. She immediately realized it was cigarette smoke, but Susan managed to convince her that it was the taxi driver who had smoked. Susan's father usually goes to the garden in the morning, but recently he hasn't been going. Mother mentions this and adds that he hasn't even been coming out of his room lately. Susan is surprised and asks why, but Mother doesn't know the reason. She assumes he has become lazy. Susan decides to go see her father. Mother says he is in the guest room. It appears that father and mother no longer share the same room. Mother complains that father snores a lot. While they are talking, Maria brings medicine for Grandma. When Susan asks for breakfast, Maria goes to prepare it. Susan then asks her mother how Maria came to work in their house. Mother responds with a question, "Why, what's wrong with her?" Susan notices that Maria is beautiful and points out that usually, people hesitate to hire such beautiful maids. Mother, however, doesn't seem to have thought about this much. Judging by Mother's attitude, it seems she isn't worried that father might flirt with Maria. The three of them head to the dining hall. After some time, another lady arrives. This is Susan's aunt, who is Mother's sister. Let's call her aunt. A little girl also follows, who is Susan's younger sister. Let's call her sister. Aunt complains that sister had been running around all night, which disturbed aunt's sleep. Aunt also says she had to use the bathroom more than 25 times at night, which Mother teases her about. Everyone laughs and seems happy, giving the impression of a close-knit family. After breakfast, Susan takes coffee to her father. Mother tells Maria to wake father up and take the coffee to the guest room. After knocking on the door for a long time, father does not open it. Seeing Maria waiting outside, Mother tells her, "Just go inside, father's hearing isn't very good." Maria goes inside, and within seconds, she screams. Everyone asks what happened. Maria says someone has killed father. Hearing this, everyone is shocked. She explains that someone stabbed father in the chest with a knife. Sister quickly goes to see father and locks the door after coming out. Everyone is unsure what to do and is in a state of panic. They confirm that father is indeed dead. Sister insists that no one should enter the room until the police arrive and locks the door to preserve the crime scene. When Mother asks for the key, Sister refuses to give it. Eventually, after much insistence, Sister hands over the key. They go inside and see that father has indeed been stabbed in the chest, and there is blood in the area. They confirm that father has died. Sister wonders if the killer is still inside the house. Aunt faints on hearing this. They carry Aunt to the sofa and try to revive her. Mother slaps Aunt lightly on the cheek, which brings her back to consciousness. Grandma wonders if father committed suicide due to recent business losses. Mother refutes this, saying the nature of the wound doesn't align with suicide, it's definitely a murder. Maria approaches Mother, saying they should immediately inform the police. Mother agrees. Sister goes to get the phone, but they are in for another shock, the phone wire has been cut. Someone deliberately did it. As everyone is confused and panicking, they hear banging sounds from upstairs. This makes everyone more frightened, especially since the phone wire is cut and the identity of the murderer is unknown. The sound seems to come from Sister's room, and Aunt suggests that they check it. Sister goes to close the window in her room, but Mother stops her, fearing for her safety. Mother, too, is scared but looks at Maria and smiles. Maria picks up a shawl with trembling hands and heads upstairs. After a while, she comes back down, saying she has closed the window and there's nothing upstairs. Maria then mentions something about the dog. She explains that if the killer had come from outside, the dog would have barked. But the dog didn't bark even once last night. The only time it barked was when Susan arrived in her car. If the dog had noticed an outsider, Maria would have surely checked, but since it didn't bark, it means the killer must be someone who frequently comes to this house. Everyone agrees this seems logical. Susan returned home early this morning, so she started questioning about what happened last night. Everyone said nothing unusual occurred. The killer had murdered her father, cut the phone wire, but nobody knew when these events took place. When Susan asked who used the phone last, Maria said she had called the nearby shop to request groceries. She mentioned she made the call around 7 a.m. because the shopkeeper said he couldn't deliver due to heavy fog. So the phone was working until 7 a.m., and the killer must have cut the phone wire after that. This led Susan to conclude that the killer was still inside the house. Susan then asked her mother if anyone had been opposing her father recently. Her mother said she didn't know. A little while ago, her grandmother had mentioned that her father suffered a loss in his business. Susan asked more about it, and her grandmother shared what she knew. Her grandmother didn't know who her father had partnered with for business. However, she knew that recently her father had been struggling financially and had even asked her, the grandmother, for stocks she owned. But the grandmother had refused to give them, saying she wouldn't part with her assets. Her grandmother was her mother's mother, and for the last 10 years, Susan's father had been taking care of her. Susan's mother grew angry, questioning why the grandmother didn't give the stocks to her father when he asked. This argument caused Susan's aunt to defend the grandmother and side with her during the quarrel. For now, Susan told them to drop the subject. She asked again if anyone had a grudge against her father. Her mother insisted that her father had good relations with everyone and didn't mistrust anyone. Recently, he had partnered with someone named Janutri in business, and everything seemed fine with him too, according to her aunt. When Susan asked if the partner could benefit from her father's death, Maria said it was unlikely. Although the partner visited their house often, whenever he came, the dog would bark at him aggressively. This made it unlikely that the partner was the killer, Maria concluded. Maria's observation seemed accurate, making Susan's mother happy. She smiled at Maria and said, "Good." Since no outsider had entered the house and the partner wasn't the killer, Susan began thinking about who else could be a suspect. She asked who would gain from her father's death. Her mother explained that the inheritance would go to her and her daughters. But she couldn't say how much exactly because she didn't know what her father had written in his will. Susan wondered if her father had included Veronica's name in the will. If so, Veronica would also get a share of the property. Her younger sister brought up Veronica, prompting her mother to ask why she was mentioning her. Her sister said that until the end, their father had loved Veronica. Her mother dismissed this, but her sister claimed that Veronica was their father's friend. She added that while her aunt knew about Veronica, she wasn't aware of her current whereabouts. Her aunt asked whether her father and Veronica frequently met. She admitted knowing that her father had loved Veronica. Her sister's earlier statement seemed to confirm this. When her mother was asked, she said that her father and Veronica were good friends who met often, dined together, and even went horseback riding together. They shared the same horse, and anyone observing them could tell they were in love. It seemed her mother had known about this all along but chose not to openly acknowledge it, likely because it was too painful for her to admit. As soon as Mom went outside, the remaining 5 people sat on the sofa. After a short while, Mom returned. When she looked around, she found that the car engine wire was cut, and the car couldn't start. Everyone was shocked hearing this. First, Dad was attacked, then the phone wire was cut, Grandma's stocks were stolen, and now the car engine wire was cut. No one could understand who was doing all this or what was happening. People started blaming each other one by one. Suddenly, everyone screamed while looking at the window. Mom turned around and saw someone crossing past the window. Thinking it might be the killer, everyone decided to go to the terrace and hide. Then, Dad heard a knocking sound at the door. Everyone's fear increased. Mom boldly said she would go inside and open the door. When the door was opened, a lady entered. It was Veronica, Dad's lover. Including Veronica, there were now 7 women in the house. Mom asked why she had come. Veronica explained that someone had called her and informed her about Dad's death. She said she had called this house's number but couldn't connect. At first, she thought someone was playing a prank, but later, she decided to check herself and came. Everyone stood quietly without saying anything. Veronica asked where Dad was. Neither Dad nor anyone else spoke. Veronica then went to the guest room, but the door was locked. Veronica said she wanted to see Dad. Mom told her that Dad had been killed by someone. Realizing Dad was indeed dead, Veronica became upset. She understood that the news she received over the phone was true. Veronica asked who had made the call. No one knew who had called. Susan asked if it was a man or a woman who called. Veronica confirmed it was a woman. At this point, Mom noticed something. She asked how Veronica knew that Dad was in the guest room. Without answering, Veronica insisted she wanted to see Dad. Mom mentioned that the key was on the piano. Veronica took the key and opened the door, but it didn't open. She said it was the wrong key. Immediately, Mom took the key and opened the door herself. This time, it opened. Mom realized she had left the original key on the piano, and it didn't make sense to her. She suspected someone had swapped the original key with the wrong one. Veronica thought Mom was acting out some drama. She asked where the original key was and who placed the wrong key. The younger sister repeated the same question Mom had asked Veronica. How did she know Dad was in the guest room? Only then did Veronica reveal her secret. Veronica confessed that she had been frequently visiting this house without anyone knowing. She said she knew very well that Dad wouldn't sleep in the bedroom with Mom, instead, he always slept in the guest room. The younger sister accused Veronica of being the serial killer who had been entering the house secretly. Grandma came to Veronica and asked if she had come last night. Veronica said no. Grandma accused Veronica of lying. Looking at Grandma, Veronica laughed sarcastically and said she was leaving. But the younger sister insisted that Veronica shouldn't leave, as she was a suspect. Without responding, Veronica opened the door. The snowfall seemed to have increased. Veronica remarked that she would stay in the house until the snow melted and suspicions were cleared, and then she went inside. Smoking a cigarette, Veronica mocked everyone, asking each of them, "Are you the killer? Are you the killer?" Susan said Veronica was still a suspect. Veronica replied, "I just came here now, how can I be a suspect?" Susan accused Veronica, saying she might have returned to kill everyone. The younger sister turned the suspicion onto Susan, saying she too was a suspect. Veronica lived in the same town, so doubting her could be justified. But Susan came all the way from Milan and arrived early in the morning. How could anyone doubt her? The younger sister then revealed another detail. She said that last night at 3 a.m., Susan had visited the house and even gone to Dad's room. The younger sister said Susan had spoken to Dad. Hearing this, Mom was shocked. Susan explained that she had come late at night to talk privately with Dad. After their conversation, she went back to the railway station. Mom asked what secret Susan had come to discuss with Dad. Susan hesitated to answer, but Mom pressed further. Finally, Susan handed a box to Mom. Inside the box was a tiny shoe. Mom asked, "Is Dad going to have a child?" Susan revealed that she was pregnant. Susan was not yet married. She had been sent to Milan to study only 6 months ago, and now she was pregnant. It felt like a thunderbolt had struck the entire family. Mom scolded Susan. Just then, Maria came from the kitchen and announced that lunch was ready. Mom replied that no one was in the mood to eat. Everything Dad had asked to be prepared for Christmas had been cooked by Maria. Maria insisted that everyone should eat for Dad's sake. Mom finally agreed. Until the food arrived, everyone sat silently. But after seeing the food, they all started eating well. Mom felt slightly dizzy. Veronica observed Maria's cooking skills and asked who had taught her to cook. Maria replied that her grandmother had taught her a little, and she learned the rest from reading books. Veronica commented that if Maria could cook by reading books, she must be well educated. Veronica suggested that Maria hadn't come to this house for maid work but for some other reason. Maria didn't deny Veronica's words. Veronica said her guess was correct. It was revealed that Maria and Dad had been in love. Maria had come to this house to take care of Dad. Now that Dad was dead, Maria said she would leave the house. She went to her room. Veronica being her father's lover shocked Sithi initially, but now, learning that Maria is the actual lover, Sithi faints. Amma, mother, goes to Maria's room and sees Maria packing her things. Maria says she came for Appa, father, so she must have taken whatever she wanted from him. Maria smiles in a way that makes it seem like she is mocking Amma. Amma tells Maria that she has always prioritized money but asserts that Maria didn't come for money. Maria being Appa's lover has now been revealed, and it becomes clear that Maria went to Appa's room at night to meet him. Amma concludes that Maria is the killer. Maria argues that if it was wrong for her to go at night, then it was equally wrong for Amma to go too. Amma leaves without saying anything. Before moving to the next scene, let's clarify a few things. The killer first killed Appa. then cut the phone wires, stole Patty's grandma's stocks, and cut the car engine wires. All these acts were committed by the killer. In the house, there are 7 women in total. Among them, Amma, Susan, and Maria have been identified as potential suspects so far. Maria steps out of the house, and Susan questions why they let Maria go. Amma says that since the snowstorm is worsening, Maria will definitely return. After a while, Maria does return but says she didn't come back because of the snowstorm. She reveals that someone locked the main gate from the outside. Hearing this, everyone becomes scared again, suspecting the killer. No one could understand why the killer was behaving this way. The sister mentioned that the killer seemed to be expecting something from the other women. She suggested that if everyone shared their secrets, the situation might be resolved. Maria revealed that she had already shared her secret, and Susan said the same about hers. When the sister asked who would share their secret next, Veronica said she had something to share. She took out a letter, and as soon as the aunt saw it, she angrily grabbed it and asked how it had ended up with her. The aunt used to read many books, and when returning her father's book, she had written her feelings in a letter and tucked it inside. Her father later gave the book to Veronica, who first read the letter and then showed it to him. After reading the letter, her father laughed uncontrollably. Seeing him laugh at her confession deeply hurt the aunt. The previous night, before Maria went to serve tea, the aunt had gone to her father's room to retrieve the letter. However, since he wasn't in the mood to talk, she couldn't take it back. This was her secret. Because she had visited her father's room, she now became a suspect. Veronica remarked that their father was very handsome, so it was unlikely he had feelings for the aunt. Hearing this, the aunt began to hyperventilate. Their mother then asked someone to fetch the aunt's tablet box. Susan and the sister went to the aunt's room to look for it. After some time, the sister said the box was missing. Suddenly, the grandmother got up from her wheelchair, shocking everyone. She said she would go and check, but just then, Susan returned with the tablet box. Seeing the grandmother walk, Susan was astonished as well. The grandmother explained that she could walk and then sat back in the wheelchair. Earlier, the grandmother had mentioned that their father faced financial troubles and had asked her for her stock investments. Now, with the revelation that the grandmother could walk, everyone started to suspect her too. They first tried to save the aunt. When the sister mentioned the tablet box was missing, Susan brought it back. The sister asked where she had found it, and Susan replied that it was under their mother's bed. Everyone started thinking their mother had taken the tablet box to kill the aunt. The mother denied this and said someone was trying to frame her. The grandmother said she would never play with the aunt's life, and neither Susan nor the sister would do such a thing because they were all family. Maria came into this house only for the father's sake, and the aunt's death wouldn't benefit her in any way. Hence, Veronica accused the mother of killing the aunt and trying to pin the blame on someone else. The mother suspected Veronica had killed the father. Recently, the father had instructed his lawyer to write his will, and Veronica had fought with him, insisting her name be included. The mother guessed that Veronica had killed him during that argument. Maria agreed with the mother, saying that last night, when she went to the father's room for the second time to get the tea tray, she saw Veronica talking to him. Not wanting to disturb them, Maria left, adding that Veronica was the last person to see the father alive. Thus, Maria concluded that Veronica was the killer. Veronica admitted she went to see the father but denied discussing the will or killing him. She stated that no one in the house knew what was written in the will. If her name wasn't included, the mother's suspicion might be valid. But if her name was included, then the mother's theory would fall apart, and suspicion would turn toward the mother instead. Veronica then accused the mother of killing the father to include her own name in the inheritance. The mother claimed she didn't know what was written in the will. Susan then revealed that she knew about the will. The father hadn't written the will yet, but the previous night he had told her that, because she was pregnant, he planned to include her child in the will. This shifted the mother's suspicion to Susan. The mother argued that the father wouldn't have agreed to include the child's name, so Susan must have killed him. More importantly, Susan had retrieved the aunt's tablet box from the mother's room. The mother accused Susan of planning to kill the aunt and frame her for it. Susan denied this, but the mother, furious, started speaking ill about Susan's pregnancy. The grandmother then mentioned that the father had once told the mother that her daughter would grow up to be just like her. This angered the mother, who began crying. The grandmother, after drinking too much, began rambling and brought up the mother's first lover, calling him a tall man. Furious, the mother picked up a nearby bottle and hit the grandmother on the head, knocking her unconscious. She then locked the grandmother in the storeroom, saying she needed to rest, and walked out. Now everyone started suspecting the mother. Meanwhile, Susan's lifelong secret was revealed. Just as Susan was pregnant before marriage, the mother had also been pregnant before her wedding. Her first lover was another man who had died in an accident. At the time of her wedding to the father, the mother was 3 months pregnant. She confessed the truth to the father, and he married her anyway. Although the father knew Susan wasn't his biological daughter, he had raised her as his own for all these years. Even though the mother didn't love the father, the reason she lived with him all these years was this. We see Veronica eavesdropping on the conversation between the mother and Susan. Now the scene shifts to the aunt, who is sitting alone in her room, feeling isolated. Maria goes to the aunt's room to talk to her. Veronica may have said something insulting to the aunt, but Maria says she has come only to advise her that beauty is not the most important thing for a woman. She says she wants to completely transform the aunt and goes to the wardrobe. The scene cuts to the mother, who asks the sister where Veronica is. The sister says she doesn't know. The sister says she is suspicious of Veronica. Susan, meanwhile, opens Veronica's purse to check if it might be in the guest room. When she opens the purse, she finds a gun. This almost confirms to everyone that Veronica is the killer. Suddenly, in a shocking moment, the aunt appears in a modern dress, thanks to Maria's efforts. Maria had advised the aunt that smiling is more important than being beautiful, so the aunt gives a smiling yet mysterious pose. A little while later, Veronica comes out of the toilet. The mother asks her why she brought a gun and directly accuses her of killing the father. The two start arguing again, accusing each other. Suddenly, the power goes out. Everyone assumes this must be the work of the killer. Maria says staying here any longer is dangerous, and they should jump over the gate and escape. Everyone heads to the gate. Veronica says she is going to stay here, and the sister insists that the mother stay as well because the grandmother is still inside. Now only the mother and Veronica remain in the house. Despite having fought earlier in front of everyone, they are now casually chatting. Veronica says she revealed the aunt's secret but not the mother's. The mother asks what secret she is referring to. Veronica says the aunt loved the father, just as the mother loved someone else. Veronica doesn't know who the mother's lover is, but she is sure the mother was in love with someone. Veronica suggests that if the mother loved someone else, it would be easy to turn the case around and accuse her of killing the father. The mother denies having any lover. Veronica then admits she was once married but got divorced. Veronica says she knows the mother's pain, and that's why she wants to ask about this secret when no one else is around. She then says, just like the mother seems to have had a lover, she herself had someone in her life too, but it wasn't the father. Veronica reveals that she and the father had been in love during their teenage years, but now they are just good friends. The mother asks Veronica who her lover is, and Veronica, in turn, asks the mother who her lover is. They decide to say the names together on the count of 3. They count, 1, 2, 3, and here comes the next twist, both of them say the name of the father's partner. The moment Veronica says the name of her partner, the mother gets furious. She holds her head and starts arguing with Veronica again. The scene cuts to the women near the gate, thinking about how to climb over it. The aunt struggles to climb, and then the sister tries, but her hand slips. Since the ground is slippery with dew, Maria says they should try again tomorrow morning. They decide to go back inside. Meanwhile, the sounds of the mother and Veronica fighting can be heard outside. Thinking the killer has returned, everyone rushes back into the house. Maria looks at something and is shocked. Now the scene shifts to the mother, who is still arguing with Veronica. Neither of them wins the fight, so Veronica suggests they end it there. When the other women enter the house, the mother sits casually on the sofa as if nothing happened. The sister brings the grandmother out of the storeroom, and Maria says she has figured out what's happening. She says she knows who is behind all this but doesn't know why they are doing it. She believes it's better if the person confesses themselves, and she looks at the sister. Everyone stares at the sister in shock, suspecting her to be the reason behind everything. The sister finally begins explaining what happened. She says that in this house, the father was the only man among 7 women, and all of them had been torturing him. Last night, she couldn't sleep and sneaked into the father's room, hiding behind the curtain. The sister says she witnessed everything with her own eyes, how each person had tortured the father the previous night. Now she begins explaining everything one by one. First, she narrates what happened. At 10 p.m. last night, the grandmother went to the father's room. Due to his business losses, the father asked about her stocks, but the grandmother, who had been feeding and supporting him for 10 years, refused to give him the stocks. Then, at 10:30 p.m., the aunt entered the room and started discussing a letter. However, the father showed no interest in her and wasn't even ready to talk to her. He asked her to leave the room. At 11 p.m., the mother came in and told the father she was planning to leave the house. At 12 a.m., Maria entered with tea. She didn't do anything to torture the father. At 1 a.m., the aunt returned, wanting to talk again, but this time, the father didn't even let her into the room. At 1:30 a.m., Veronica arrived. She had the keys to the house and came inside because she had something to ask of him. Veronica needed financial help from the father as she was planning to go back to Paris. That's why she rushed over as soon as she got the call. Finally, at 3 a.m., Susan arrived and started crying, revealing that she was pregnant. The sister says she witnessed all these events, watching them unfold from behind the curtain. After everyone left, she stepped out and confronted the father, telling him that she knew everything. The father admitted that he no longer had any desire to live and that ending his life would give him peace. The sister offered to help him, but the mother overheard this and asked if the sister had killed him. Maria interrupted, saying the father wasn't dead yet. The sister explains that she had devised a plan to see who truly cared for the father. She wanted to know who talked about money and who cried for him. The father agreed to this plan because he needed to settle everything before meeting his lawyer the next day to draft his will. The sister used a fake knife coated with chemicals on the father. She was the one who called Veronica, cut the phone wires, and damaged the car engine wires. She also stole the grandmother's stocks, placed the aunt's medicine in a hidden bag packed by the mother, and put a fake gun in Veronica's handbag. All of this was done by her. At first, the sister locked the door to prevent anyone from disturbing the father. However, the mother forced the sister to give her the key. The mother kept the fake key near the piano after swapping it for the original key, which the sister had taken. The father, listening to everything they discussed, now understood who genuinely cared for him. The sister said this and went to the father's room with the mother, who declared she would kill him. Maria explained how she figured everything out. She had been observing the father's movements from outside the window. The 7 women then went to the father's room, took the real key from the sister, and opened the door. Here comes the major twist: he wasn't in the room. They checked the balcony, only to see that the father had jumped off the terrace and committed suicide. The father killed himself because he realized no one truly loved him. In the next scene, the police arrive, and the mother claims the father committed suicide due to debt issues. Everyone agrees. The father was really dead, but the family soon moved on and started discussing other topics. They decided to manage the father's property for a while. The sister was angry with the father for leaving her, and she eventually joined the other women. In the end, they all decide to enjoy life, and the movie concludes.